Hello everybody and welcome to Purgatory Ironworks. I, of course, am your host, Trenton, and today we're going to be following up on a shop tip that we put out earlier. I was talking about punching and drifting as overlooked tools in a beginner's kit, and these things are very important. When we're trying to figure out what videos to teach everybody, it's kind of hard to cover all the bases, because if somebody has access to a modern tool that somebody else doesn't and it's an easier way, that's what I kind of push everybody to. But what if you don't have access to that stuff? So we're going to start off by making a super basic type of punch, and we're going to make this out of regular mild steel. You don't have to have a fancy alloy, but we're going to start with mild steel. Now, that's going to present some problems as we use this thing, because basically every time that we use it, we're going to have to redress it, but it can be used, and you're kind of going to get to see why it's important to have different materials for different tools. So this is going to be super easy. All we're going to do is we're going to take the front end of a piece of 1/2 inch mild steel, draw it into a taper, and put a flat end on it. That's it. I'll make sure it's the appropriate length, and that's it. That's a punch. Doesn't even have to have square sides. For most of the material that we're going to be using, don't even need it. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. We're going to put it to use, and I'm kind of going to show you guys exactly the issues you're going to run into if you use mild steel and not some other type of tool steel. So let me take a heat and let's start drawing this guy down. So I'm not going to make a very deep taper with this. This is not going to be a whole lot more than the tent stake taper that we've done before. Now remember, when you're drawing anything out, you always start square and then you finish round. And there you can see is our first heat. And right now on the end, it's about a 1/4 inch square, which is pretty close. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to take one more heat. I'm going to put a little bit more angle on here, and then we'll round it out. This is still only about 2.5 inches worth of taper. But now it's nice and square, and now I'm going to come in, and I'm going to start working those sharp edges. Because whenever you're going from square to round, which is a basic technique, start square, you go to an octagon, and then you can work it all the way on round. Okay. And that's it. We just literally have a taper on here. Now you see there's a little bit of rag here on my edge, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this with a sander. Just make sure that's nice and flat, that there's no cold shuts or anything in there, just a good solid piece. Now you can see this guy's a little bit long. I'm going to chop it down to about 12 inches, and then let's take a look at what we got. So let's take a close-up and look at what we've done here. You can see that I've simply taken my sander, and I've just cleaned that up a little bit, and I've made sure and put a flat tip on it there. I cut this down to about 12 inches, and that's it. Now, hey, boys and girls, that's it. This is a punch. This is a punch that will serve you exceedingly well. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, because this is mild steel, though, it's going to present some problems, as you're going to see here in a few minutes. This will work. You're going to be fighting this tool, which is not good, but in the meantime, until you find a little bit better steel, like a 1045 again or something along that line, this will work. So let's grab a piece of 1 inch by 1/4 inch, heat it up, and let's see if we can't punch something with it. One of the things I want to stress is that that's it. It's that simple. It's one rounding taper, a little bit of sanding, and that's it. That is a punch. Now I know that you guys have seen a lot of the fancy punches that are on handles, that the shafts are straight in line. Those are punches too, but a lot of work got done with something this simple. Because what we're going to do in a following video is I'm going to show you how to make the drift. So the first thing we have to do is just get a hole through it. As long as we've got a hole through it and we can get it opened up to accept the drift, we can very accurately size holes wherever we want them. but that's the only piece that you need. Now, if you're making tongs or things like that, if you have an opportunity to use a drill, sometimes that's better. It's going to be a more precise hole, but if you don't have a good vise, you don't have a way to lock down your steel, you're going to snap bits, and it's going to be a problem. So this is a good foundation to start learning about these basic tools. So, like as I said before, I've got a piece of 1 inch by 1/4. You know, if you're going to be making hangers and things like that, 1/4 inch strip is going to be what you're going to be using. So this should be a good approximation for most of the things that you need an actual hole punched in there for. So let's heat it up. I'll lock it down with a hole fast, and we'll go a tinky. Before we go over here and start punching, I've got a little cup of water sitting on the anvil, because whether you're using mild steel or any other steel, as you're punching, you need to keep that tip cool, because the cooler it is, the less it's going to deform. And that's really the problem. When you're driving mild steel and it starts warming up and it starts resisting or taking that impact, it's going to want to mushroom, and that's the problem. We want to try to keep it as cool as possible so that it can work through the soft, hot material without overheating itself. So you'll see me, as I'm working this piece, dip my particular punch in the water to try to keep it cool. Now, guys, we're just going to pick any random place. I'm going to go 1, 2, and then very quickly cool the punch. Okay, now let's look and see what we've got. Now, just like that, you can see we've got a pretty deep punch hole already. There's no problem with that. But, and we'll have to take a close look, if you can see that this guy's already starting to kind of bend over a little bit. It's already starting to round over, and it's going to move to one side. So a lot of times when I'm working with a mild steel piece, I come back in and I do this number because it's already starting to deform. However, we're good to go here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take one more heat. We're going to go in from this side one more time, and then we'll flip over and do the back. Here we go, one more time with our piece. Lock it in. Now, I can feel that thing is pretty much bottomed out. So now I'm going to flip it over, and you can actually see that dark spot. And that dark spot is where we're going to go right back on this side. Now, most of the time, you want to push this plug from the back side at red heat, not at orange, because that will cause that plug to shear as opposed to just being mashed. And if you look right there, check that out. We've got a hole right there through it. In fact, we got a nice little plug sitting right there. I tell you what, this is too good. Live with it. Let's take a close-up. Now, if you see right here, there's our plug. Came out super nicely, and look what a neat hole, and there is the punch that did it. But if you can see, you can very clearly see where this thing's already worn. It's already rounded over on the edges, and you can see it's pretty much needs to be redressed right now. But we already have a hole that's there, and we are good to go. Now, the other thing is, now that we've got the hole there, we can actually use this to open it up a little bit if we don't have a drift. Of course, we're going to make that in our next video. But now that you've got a hole through there, you can use this in conjunction with the Pritchell hole to actually open this guy up. We're looking pretty good there. So I'll tell you what, but I think we're going to hold it right there. And we're going to get into the next part of our punch. So guys, that's it. It's that super easy. Mild steel punch. Now again, once you use it, you're going to be dressing it every time. Back in the days of old, a lot of their punches were wrought iron, which is actually softer than mild steel. So dressing tools and grinding tools and putting a new edge back on them was something that they did constantly. The great thing about having our modern alloys is that we have different steels that will resist that type of wear, that will resist moving under heat, that won't round over like the mild steel will. That's when you get into super fancy stuff like H13, impact steels, or even high-speed steels, which you may not recognize by name, but is the type of steel that's in most drill bits. Now, why is that important? Because in our next video, I'm going to show you how to cheat a little bit. And this is what Jay Riekert himself did. Jay had a mild steel punch, but it had a very special tip on it. So we're going to use a couple of modern techniques, and I'm going to show you how to cheat and get yourself a really good punch for very little money. But that's going to be the video for this time. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Hey, remember how this works. We're working hard. Hit the like button, subscribe, and for goodness sake, go to our Patreon page if you can help support the channel. You know all that crap. I'm never good at. I hate begging. Anyway, you guys know what to do. Get out of here. Get on.